Beautiful people, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I wanted to get into some key lessons from the book, The Four Agreements. I often get asked, what are some book recommendations? What are some of your favorite books? And something that I always recommend is The Four Agreements because of how simple and easy to read it is. You know, it's very easy to digest, and I really, value books that don't create a lot of resistance when reading it, and it's really easy for me to digest, and it's something that you can always go back to, right? It's something that you can always go back to. So I got some notes, got some quotes from the book. We're gonna get into it. The first lesson is be impeccable with your word. It says, speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using your words to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Be impeccable with your word. What it means to be impeccable with your word is to be intentional with your word. Be intentional with the words that you speak, not only about others, but about yourself as well, right? Because your words hold power, whether you realize it or not. And if you want to see what you believe about yourself, the beliefs that you hold, about your identity, really start to pay attention to the words you use when you're speaking about yourself and the words you use to speak to yourself, right? Because it will give you a very clear indication into how you view yourself, right? And the beliefs you have about the person staring back at you in the mirror, right? It says our words are seeds that shape the way we see the world and how others see us. They can uplift us or destroy us. Being impeccable with your word means taking full responsibility for what you say and using your voice to bring healing rather than harm. Using your voice to bring healing rather than harm. There's that saying that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Yeah, words definitely hold power. Words definitely hold power. So really be mindful of how you're using your words. How are you speaking, to other people? Are you speaking life into other people, or are you, taking and speaking down on other people? It's something that you have to really be mindful of. You know what I mean? Because so often we move through life so unintentionally, and we say any and everything to people without ever really asking ourselves or thinking about how what we're saying is affecting them, right? Either positively or negatively, right? And so being really mindful of that can help you tremendously to start shifting into a more aligned, authentic word of mouth, right? Aligned, authentic word of mouth. Think about the highest version of yourself, and then think about, okay, how would that person speak on an everyday basis? What would that person talk about in the words that they would use on an everyday basis? And start to embody that now. One of the quotes from the book is, the word is the most powerful tool you have as a human. It is the tool of magic. It is the tool of magic. Point number 2, this was probably the main lesson I got from the book that completely changed my life. Don't take anything personally. Do not take anything personally. It says nothing others do is because of you. What they say or do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Understand that what people do to you is not a reflection of you, it's a projection of them. So often, when people project certain things onto us that they have going on within themselves, we take that personally, right? Because we internalize that and we view it as a reflection of who we are, or an attack against, our self-worth or our identity, whatever it may be. And so we take it personal, and all you're doing is causing so much needless suffering when you take on the projections of other people, right? Understand that they're living their own reality. They have their own baggage, their own trauma, their own unhealed pain within themselves. And a lot of times when, people lash out or, attack you or do something to you that from the outside point of view is hurtful, understand that it is a projection of them. That is not a reflection of you. You don't need to take that personal. And when I really started to embody that, it changed my life. Truly changed my life. It says, taking things personal feeds the ego and creates unnecessary emotional pain. By detaching from others' judgments, you remain grounded in your own truth rather than being controlled by the external world. The reason not taking things personal is so powerful is because it allows you to start grounding yourself in the truth of who you actually are, not in what somebody says to you, not in what somebody does to you. Because if what they say or do to you does not align with who you actually are, then we're going to just let it pass by, because it does not align with the truth that we know to be true about ourselves, right? And so, when you take things personal, it feeds your ego and it creates so much unnecessary emotional pain. There's been so many times in my life where I've taken on, the baggage of somebody else, or I've taken on, the projection of somebody else. And it's just caused me unneeded emotional pain. You're good. You're good. So my boy just came in, so it's all good. But yeah, just be mindful of that. Be mindful of that. Quote from the book. It says, whatever happens around you, you don't take it personally. Nothing other people do is because of you. It is because of themselves. Very simple, but yet profound. Point number 3, don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. It says, find the courage to ask questions and express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. Challenge your assumptions, right? That's one of the best practices that you can really start to instill in your life, is challenging your own assumptions. Moving through this egotistical world, it's very easy to fall into just assuming things about situations or people, right? Being able to challenge those assumptions allows you to lead into situations or lead into relationships with a curious mindset rather than, having that assumption bias, right? So you're already like in the perspective or the viewpoint of thinking of this person or this situation as a certain thing based off of your assumption, rather than challenging that assumption and then going into this thing or into this relationship with a curious mindset. It could change everything, because now you're open to the beauty that the situation has rather than trying to affirm the assumption that you made about this thing. Changes everything. It changes everything. It says, most conflict stems from assumptions, believing we know what someone else thinks or feels without ever asking. When we stop assuming and start communicating clearly, we build stronger, more honest relationships. Do not hold your tongue. When you are trying to get to know somebody, when you're trying to understand an experience or whatever it may be, you need to be honest and open about how you're feeling and the questions that you have about this thing. If you hold that stuff back, it's just going to lead you to making assumptions about what that person is thinking or what this thing is, and those assumptions can drive you crazy. And I speak from experience. Those assumptions can drive you crazy, right? And if you want to build stronger, more honest relationships, we got to stop assuming. We got to start communicating. Assuming and communication is two totally different things. A lot of us just assume and we act off of the assumption rather than communicating and gaining a real understanding of what that person is feeling and what they're thinking and what they're navigating, and then going about it that way. Changes everything. Changes everything. The problem with making assumptions is that we believe they are true. That's a quote from the book. The problem with making assumptions is that we believe they are true. Point number 4. I love this one. Always do your best. Always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. Under any circumstance, simply just do your best, right? And your best is going to look different depending on the season that you're in, the condition that you're in, where you're at, what situation you're in. But as long as you show up with that intention that I'm going to put my best foot forward in this situation, in this current season, you're going to get to exactly where you need to be. Everything's going to work out exactly as it's meant to work out, right? Because you're setting that intention that no matter what I'm going through, I'm going to do my best to the best of my ability, right? And sometimes your best is only one step, right? Take that one step with grace and compassion, right? And sometimes your best is going to be 100 steps. Take those 100 steps with grace and compassion, right? But always do your best to the best of your ability, right? And doing your best, the important thing to remember about doing your best is that don't fall into the trap of comparing your best to somebody else's best, right? You're not them, they're not you. You're not where they are, they're not where you are. Do your best for your unique life and your unique position, and the rest will take care of itself. It says doing your best isn't about perfection. It's about presence. When you show up fully and give what you can without overworking or under-delivering, you live with peace and without guilt. That's so true. Listen, when you know that you've given your best to a certain situation, to a certain relationship, to a certain circumstance, whether the outcome goes left or right, you're at peace with it because you know that you showed up to the best of your ability, right? One of the worst pains in life is regret. Regret from not really putting your best foot forward. Your regret from under-delivering. Regret from not showing up in the way that you know you can show up, right? And the best way to relieve yourself of that regret for the future is to show up and give your best. Put your best foot forward to the best of your ability, right? And whether it goes your way or doesn't go your way or whatever the outcome is, you can sleep in bed at night with peace because you know that you did the best you could. You did everything that you could for that situation. Come on. And the last lesson is break the old agreements. Break the old agreements. I love this. It says before you can fully embrace the 4 agreements that we just touched on, you must become aware of the unconscious agreements you've already made with yourself and the world, often rooted in fear, limitation, and conditioning. Before we can really start to embody these 4 agreements, we must first become aware of the agreements that we've allowed to become our identity, that we've allowed to infiltrate our inner being from the external world, from the environment we grew up in, right? And we need to really ask ourselves, are these things congruent with where we're trying to go? Are they true with the highest version of ourselves, right? And if they're not, we first need to let go of those, break the old agreement so that we can step into these new agreements. Come on. It says freedom comes from conscious choice. By noticing and unlearning the beliefs that no longer serve us, we reclaim our personal power and create a new internal agreement rooted in love, authenticity, and truth. Come on. It says we have learned to live by the agreements we have made with ourselves, with other people, with God, with society. But the most important agreements are the ones we make with ourselves. So be mindful of the agreements that you're taking on for your personal life, right? But yeah, that's the 4 agreements, 4 different agreements, 5 lessons in total because of the last one. But I highly, highly suggest that each and every one of you get this book. I love y'all. Have a great day. Be impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. And don't take anything personal. 4 agreements.